sound?
You sound great.
Great.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Tim.
Please enjoy making everyone outside feel jealous if they're missing out on something great. They should have followed us on social media. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second artist talk since we reopened. Counting guests who didn't talk, this is our third event since we reopened, and counting Free Comic Book Day, I guess this is our fifth.
Also, before we get started, I decided to be fancy and wear nails, and now I've lost the ability to open cans. Thank you, Tim.
Welcome. All right. Erica Henderson drew 41 issues worth of the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl for Marvel Comics, 6 issues worth of Jughead for, I counted, Archie Comics. Erica drew and colored the original graphic novel, Dracula, motherfucker, and I'm going to say that. This is not an event just for children. Written by Alex DeCampi for Image Comics. The 6-issue miniseries Assassin Nation, written by Kyle Starks for Image Comics.
And was it not 5?
I thought I checked Diamond when I wrote this introduction. Wow, Diamond was wrong. Just in the description. They didn't solicit some mystery 6th issue. And is drawing stories for all 12 issues of Image, a 12-issue anthology published by Image Comics, celebrating that publisher's 30th anniversary. Erica has written and drawn 3 short stories for Harley Quinn, one of which appeared.
2.
Oh.
The pitch is in for the 3rd one. We'll find out.
Getting ahead of myself. 2 short stories, written and drawn. 2 short stories for Harley Quinn, one for the black and white and red miniseries.
Okay, yes, that is 3. Okay, never mind.
And 2 for regular issues of the monthly Harley Quinn series, one of which came out last week, and one of which has not been published yet. One that does exist that hasn't been published yet.
The very least have been paid for it. That's what counts.
Erica Henderson actually drew some of her comics, some of her professionally published pages here at Hub Comics on not that couch, but its predecessor. So don't you feel special sitting in this exciting place. Erica is a friend of the store and a quadruple threat, writing and drawing and coloring and lettering. She is not a cog in the assembly line, but a thoughtful and brilliant creative that any publisher or collaborator would count themselves lucky to have. The acting and facial expressions of her characters are alive, her color palettes are striking and integral to her storytelling, her sense of fashion design, the clothes her characters wear, isn't rote. It adds so much to those characters, and other artists would kill for that skill. Today is the book release date of the new 200-page graphic novel, Danger and Other Unknown Risks, which Erica co-wrote with Ryan North, and which Erica drew and colored. Hub Comics is pleased to welcome back for her 3rd appearance here, Erica Henderson.
Thank you. That was more than I expected.
I told you it was long. Oh wait, that's one of my questions. Erica, I remember the first question, and I don't have to look for this. Erica, who first put a comic book in front of you? And what was it, and where did it come from?
I have no idea what the first one would have been. There were comics in the house growing up because my dad was a writer. He read comics, and so we had a lot of different stuff around the house, and like ranging from like the regular mainstream stuff to like 80s black and white underground. Like there was Milk and Cheese, things like that. We had like those giant. I'll gesture with this hand and talk with this one.
Very sensitive.
We had those like giant gold key like Karl Barks Ducks collections, the ones that were like
The hardcovers?
yeah. Oh, the big ones.
The Karl Barks library, wherein the publisher republished every single page Barks had ever written and drawn for Scrooge and Donald in 9 slipcases, each of 3 hardcovers in black and white.
Yes, but we didn't have all of them. We had like a random assortment of them. We had like 3. But yeah, we just, so I don't know what the first one is. I don't know if like my dad was like, here is a comic book, or if I was just like grabbing stuff off shelves. Because I can't think back that far.
So in a general sense, this was organic.
Yeah.
This was part of the culture of reading at home.
Yeah.
Were you looking at newspaper strips?
I don't think they were around a lot in the house. I don't know that like, I don't think either of my parents were like newspaper people. My mom was, but they were all in Chinese. That was not useful to me.
Oh
no, wait.
Yes,
yeah,
please.
there is a Chinese strip that I enjoyed, but like I couldn't read it. It was one of those ones that was like so well cartooned. I think like in English it's called Old Master Q.
So have you tracked this down since?
You know what, I haven't really thought about it in a while. I feel like you sort of dug up like a root memory just now.
I bet the internet can. Since my phone just buzzed, I skipped the line where I said, thank you everyone for silencing your phones. Other side. The first comics I made, by today's perspective, would be charming and embarrassing. The first comics that you made, what are they like?
I'm not sure. I think, especially growing up, I think there was a lot of things where like I would start something and then stop because I got bored, and you know, you can't be expected to do that much. I do remember in middle school, we had an English teacher who for like every single book report, he'd do like one every month, she had a different thing you had to do to present it. I don't remember what they all were, but I knew that one was like make a comic book of the book you just read. And so somewhere in middle school, I did a 22-page adaptation of The Two Towers. I don't know where it is. And I know that's the first question. I have no idea.
It's hard to point to because of the chairs, but we have a local creators section here with photocopied and small press, hand stapled. So were that to make its way into print, I know a store.
Yeah, I have no idea where it is, but I know that like I very carefully like mapped this thing out, and I don't know why I went so hard into it. I don't think anyone was expecting like a full like floppy length full issue.
The funny thing is that's the middle one.
Well, that's what I read. That's what I was reading.
Right, okay.
Remember
when you finished the second one or finished the second movie and you're like, oh, I gotta wait.
And probably I was reading them in a row, so I couldn't have just gone back and done the first one. I'd probably already done a report on the first one.
Extra credit. Well, wouldn't it be funny if you did 2 additional adaptations and printed them all together? The second one really sticks out.
But yeah, I think that like there were a lot of little things that I started and then didn't finish because I was just like, oh, I have an idea, and then I was like not focused enough to finish the idea. But there's one where I went all the way through, which I guess technically is still only a piece of a story. So I guess I was consistent.
But you did finish it.
I finished it.
All right, so in college, you were in the film, animation, video department, taking mostly animation courses.
Yes.
And I'm imagining you took a bunch of classes in the illustration department.
Yeah.
Are there particular classes or lessons that have stayed with you considering what you do for work?
I don't know if I can pick out ones that like particularly stayed with me. There was one professor I really liked, and I tried to get as many classes with him as possible. Do you know Nick Jane Chick?
I do.
I love Nick Jane Chick.
I used to do a great impression of Nick Jane.
I'm sure everyone here would love your impression of a guy they don't know.
Star Trek fans, if you have DC Comics adaptation of the William Shatner written novel, Ashes of Eden, right, which Shatner wrote with 2 other people who really wrote it. The comics adaptation, Nick Jane Chick painted the cover, and Shatner kept it.
What?
or it never made its way back to the artist after going up the track for likeness approvals by the actor or his agent. I don't know how this works.
Yeah, so the first class I had with him, it was called, so the way RISD worked is you had these classes during winter, which were super condensed, and that's when teachers could do like the weird stuff. And it was a science fiction fantasy illustration, because that's what he did for a living.
This is a painting class. Painting
Yes.
like book covers.
Yeah, basically. And the funny thing about that class was, first of all, because of my dad, there was like an artist he was bringing up, and I was like, oh, I know that guy. Like, he's a friend of the family. And then it was like, we met 2 or 3 days a week, and the Friday he would show us different movies, or he would like bring up a lot of movies, and I was like, oh, I know every single one of these. Every week he was like the La Belle, La Bête, the black and white French Beauty and the Beast, to like The Hidden from the 80s. Like everything in between, I was like, oh, I've seen all these movies.
In what context was your college professor showing movies?
Well, it was a sci-fi fantasy illustration class. He was like showing us different examples from like, basically the start of cinema to now.
Okay, this wasn't him checking out. Like, I'll be back in 2 hours.
No. It was definitely like, we're gonna watch this, never gonna talk about it. And that was awesome. Loved it. Yeah.
So, all right. So, when I think of your artwork, I think of animation because to use a very helpful and simultaneously dumb phrase, it's so cartoony. What I mean is the characters are kinetic, and there is cartooning, there's exaggeration and simplification in faces. And so I look at this cover, and I think, yeah, animation. So were there classes in the animation departments which were connecting with you, or were you sort of getting the stuff out of the illustration department?
I was getting it out of illustration. I was not particularly happy with the end of the film department. I thought that there was, I don't know, there's a lot of focus on like trying to be as artsy as humanly possible, and not a lot on here's how you do the thing. So with illustration, there was, hey, here's how you do the thing. I was like, great, that's why I'm paying this money. That's awesome. I love this. But like, yeah, I think with the style, a lot of it, I mean, I do enjoy animation, but I think part of it is that comics are such an abstract form of storytelling. So you have, like, if you look at movies, it's kind of a one-to-one, right? Like, things are moving, they're making sounds, it's more or less how you would experience the thing. Like, things are maybe closer to your face, like, or further away than you might see them, but it's very natural. I think it's harder to be abstract in a film. You have to like work harder at it to make it read. And with books, it's super abstract, because like prose books, because you're looking at a pile of symbols that your brain interprets as words, and you put them together. And comics are like in between there, where you have like these images that you're putting one after another that read like a book, left to right, top to bottom. And then you also have the text in there, which is like this abstraction. And so I don't worry too much about being realistic in comics, because like they're already such a weird way to take in information.
I like that answer.
Like I think I would rather push things towards the abstract and emphasize stuff like if things are really crazy, why not just make everything all red? Who cares? Like that's how we're feeling right now.
Did you draw comics in college?
A little bit.
Was there a class, or did you contort an assignment into comics?
I did take one class with who wrote and drew The Salon, and drew the Harryhausen, not Harryhausen, the Harry Houdini book where he jumps in the Nick Cortozzi.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I was gonna guess wrong. So you made comics for a semester.
It was another winter session class.
Okay, you made comics for 6 weeks. You
Yeah, for 6
concentrated
weeks.
6 weeks.
And yeah, it was very much just a like, hey, we're just gonna sit down and make a comic
And
kind
watch
of
movies.
class. No, that was just sit down and make a comic, which I think was good because my problem was just being forced to get to the end of things, and there was just someone sitting there being like, hey, finish it.
So, were you thinking then that this might be a job? Or the job?
I don't know. I think at the time it was hard to say. Like I knew from my dad and his friends that this job is hard and can be crushing. And
So your dad was a sci-fi writer
he wrote sci-fi, he wrote a bunch of stuff.
and wrote comics.
Yes.
Okay.
All
All right. So after school, you worked at a game studio making video games, and this is before comics. This is before your comics career. How does that job and lifestyle differ?
Sure.
And what do you miss about that, or what do you not miss?
I mean, I'd say part of it is that like I feel like with comics I have because it's my thing that I'm putting out, like my name is on it. You know, like regardless of how much I actually like, you know, how much I actually own the thing versus this, you know, it's still like my name is on there. Whereas with the game studio, it's just like, yeah, you're just one of many people, and I'm not gonna fight too hard if I have different ideas than my boss, because like at a certain, like, why would I go crazy about that? You know? So it's kind of more chill in that way, but it's also nice to feel the ownership when you really are doing something for yourself.
And when you do own half of something.
Yeah.
So not just an emotional ownership as opposed to a day job, but you own half of this and you own half of this.
Yeah, so like even stuff I don't own at all, like I'm still representing me, and so I care a lot more. Not to say that like I didn't, you know, work hard, but you know, there's a level of caring when it's like your own thing. That's different.
So you had a job in a studio with other people.
Yeah.
And drawing comics is solitary. So how is that? I mean, not like how's that transition? Because you've now been doing this for a long time. But would you go back? Do you miss that?
I mean, I guess I might if I had to, but like I kind of like hanging out on my own and just every so often checking in on the people that I'm working with, or yeah, I feel like there were just enough times working in an office where I really wanted to kill someone. But even though there were good points, like I don't have those people near me anymore.
Like
It's great.
the studio probably caters dinner when there's some terrible deadline and they won't let you go home. That sounds great, right?
No, because it's a tactic to keep you there. I was at a like startup of people who all sort of felt that way, and we got bought up by a giant company, and we were constantly just like, we see your tricks, we see your horrible tricks. We'll eat your food, but not staying past 6.
I think that many people assume that when one wins a Tony Award, Oscar, an Emmy, that one's life is forever changed. You have won 2 Eisners, and it happened on the same night.
It's true.
Is your life different? And if so, how?
I don't think it's that different because, let's be honest, fewer people care about the Eisners than they do if you won an Oscar. Like it's, if you win an Oscar, you're much more important in terms of like, even just like negotiating in work and stuff like that. Whereas with the Eisners, it's good to have. Like, I think it's useful to have. Like it feels nice. I like having them.
They're so heavy. You can definitely keep things down. You can freeze. You're outside.
But I think in terms of like changing my life, that's not there. Like, having the recognition is nice, but I don't. It's not enough of an ego boost in terms of what they can do for you. That it like changed me anyway.
I was not fishing for a specific answer. I was curious, however that one went. But as a litmus test, right, we'll note that on the cover of the new book, it doesn't say by the Eisner-winning team of Brian North and Erica Henderson. It says by the New York Times best-selling creators. So certainly more people have heard of the Times.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, yeah, that's like a bigger thing to more people. And so, you know, it's all politics.
Okay, so if the Eisners are more down to earth or less heard of, what is it like to be at Comic-Con International in San Diego and to win an Eisner? Can you paint the picture for us? It's in a dingy comic book store, right?
I mean, it's in a big hall.
A convention hall.
They give you some sort of very okay buffet food beforehand. You're all sitting at these tables. There's there are various people of different levels of fame doing presentations. Some of them are extremely tasteless.
Have you, at the Oscars, people who win the Oscars sometimes give out them the next year, they're the presenters. Have you been back to?
Ryan and I presented the year before we won.
Okay.
And then we won the next year. So.
But you dress up and someone takes your photo and it's...
Yeah, some people dress up. It is still comics creators, so you know. So there are some people dressed up. Ryan and I were among their number. But
reading between the lines, I'm remembering that comics creators tend to be people who work by themselves at home for months and months on end. So, so good on those who dress up.
But yeah, like you're at you're in this big room. There's a stage where everything's happening, and I just remember them saying our names and being like, "What?"
Did you have a speech prepared? Thank you list.
I had a little bit of a speech. I don't think I had it written down. I think there was like, these are the things that I want to mention. They're sort of in my head. I also remember that for the Jughead one, Derek Charm's jacket got caught on the chair, so I had to free him before the two of us could rush on stage.
Did your speech go so long, or did the band play you off?
For the Jughead one, Ryan was reading a speech from Chip Zdarsky, because it was like a four-way win. And
because it's for the creator on the various projects they've done that year.
Yeah, and so it was like the second half of ours and the start of theirs.
Okay.
And Chip's speech went so long.
Oh, I was joking. I didn't think there was a band that
There is a counter that like is in front of you telling you how long you have, and so we knew that Chip's went for like 75% of it, and the rest were just like, thanks.
So you drew Jughead under some challenging circumstances. Can you tell us about those? And if you forget what I'm referring to, I can remind you. And also, why Jughead?
Okay, what do you remember? Because I just know it was while I was also drawing Squirrel Girl, which
Yeah,
was challenging.
Doubling up.
Okay,
Can you tell us about the amazing decision to double up?
Part of it is that I like Jughead. Like, I read Archie comics as a kid, and Jughead was my favorite one.
Why?
Partly because I liked Sam Schwartz's stories.
Who is Sam Schwartz?
He was an artist that I only know his work from Jughead, but he just had this really energetic style. Like, Dan DeCarlo, I think, has a really great cartoony style, but his characters are all very like. And Sam Schwartz like did the DeCarlo style, but it was like just so full of energy and motion, and the background of every single story, there were other things going on. Like it would just be like Jughead and Betty having a conversation, and in the background like a car accident would be happening. You just see like wheels going everywhere and people coming in with like a fire truck. It was amazing. He just put in all this extra work, and so I think that was partly why I like Jughead, and also because he was kind of above the fray. Like the stories are like 90% about teenagers being horny, and he was like doing other things.
Okay, so when this was getting ready, the main Archie book had a big relaunch.
Yes.
And then there was this
Oh.
second series.
And I was asked to do Jughead. I didn't like go in and request it.
Okay.
And so I was like, yeah, sure, yes.
And you drew it and colored it.
I colored the first 4 issues. And then Archie was like, do you want to take an extreme pay cut to keep coloring it? And I was like, no, I don't want to. I'm already doing too much work. I'll let someone else color this.
Okay, so Erica, you were penciling and inking and mostly coloring a monthly book while you were penciling and inking a monthly book.
Yes.
Squirrel Girl.
And that was also not too far. It was like also right on the tails of the Squirrel Girl graphic novel. So there was just this extremely long period of doing too much work at once.
Okay, so what is a normal amount of comics to draw in a day or a week for a pro? And what were you doing during this time?
I mean, I don't remember, but I guess we can do the math, right? Like normally people do 20 pages a month, and if I'm doing 2 books, then it was like closer to 40.
And sometimes they're also drawing the cover, and comics a few years ago went from 22 pages a month to 20 pages a month. So these numbers could be much worse.
That's true. I was doing the covers, but the covers weren't too bad. It's one drawing, as opposed to several drawings that have to work in unison to convey information.
Then our camera stopped recording. Next question. With Danger and Other Unknown Risks, you are co-writer, and with Harley Quinn, you are writer-artist. Can you talk about that change?
I write for a while. Partly it's that what I like about comics versus animation and film is that you get more control. You know, like with a film, you have to rely on, let's say if you have less money, like the locations that already exist, or you have to get people that will act certain ways, and like they're gonna, and you know, this is good. Actors will put in a piece of themselves, and that's great. But I want all the control. I want it to all be from me. And you know, you get to sit alone and do all that stuff, and not have to deal with 500 other people to put this thing together. And it's just another level of control. Doing the writing as well.
Another camera glitch. Question. Most TV is written in teams, and film screenplays are often written by more than one person. Comics tend to be written solo. You have collaborated with Ryan North before. How did you divvy up the work of co-writing Danger and Other Unknown Risks?
It's kind of the way we were talking about it is that like we have spread our skill points so we're like heavy on one side and low on the other, but like are complementary. Like we're talking about science fiction, and we like a lot of the same science fiction, but I'm really into the aspect of science fiction where it just sort of like shakes a stick in your face and is like, look at the folly of man. And he likes a lot more of the technical side of it. And like we both like the other part, but we're just much more interested in the ones we're interested in. And I think that's sort of where this came together, where like, I think in the initial draft, there were a lot of emotional things that I was like, this isn't quite right. And worked on those. I think at the end we had 24 drafts. But I mean, by the end, they were looking a lot more similar to each other. It'd be like, you know, I'm gonna change this line here and this line there. And in the beginning, it was like, oh, you know this character's only here for one chapter? they're in the whole book now. And then the next draft was like, oh, now they're a girl.
Okay, so these 3 Harley Quinn stories, they're short. They're 8 pages.
Yep.
So first question, how did you approach? I don't want to say like you're just an illustrator. How could you possibly have written? And sort of any phrasing of this question has that as an undercurrent, and I don't want that there. But you have drawn so many comics, and you're known as someone who draws comics. So how long have you wanted to write? How is it important to also be a writer? Is it scary? Because there's no co-writer on this on the Harley Quinn stuff.
Yeah, I think I've wanted to write for a while. Partly is that what I like about comics versus animation and film is that you get more control. Like with a film, you have to rely on, let's say if you have less money, like the locations that already exist, or you have to get people that will act certain ways, and like they're gonna, and this is good. Actors will put in a piece of themselves, and that's great. But I want all the control. I want it to all be from me. And you get to sit alone and do all that stuff, and not have to deal with 500 other people to put this thing together. And it's just another level of control, doing the writing as well.
So it hasn't been a scary adjustment.
It is a little bit. You're starting with a blank page. When you have a script, there's something there. You can just go into it. Even if you have to change things and fix stuff, it's there, and you're building on something, as opposed to, well, what's gonna happen? Figure it out.
Harley Quinn and
Yeah, exactly.
Back and forth with the editor or editors, or was it really the story was really all you for those 3?
It was basically me. This next one that I'm pitching is one where they're like, what if you do this? And so I guess that'll probably be from the editor, because they said, what if it's this?
Okay. So I read a lot of comics, and many decades ago, writing a very short comics story, say 8 pages, was a skill, and many people could do it. And comics are longer, and stories in serialized monthly comics go for many issues. And writing a very short, good story now in comics is A, rare, and B, did I say good, hard, and rare. And a lot of writers can't pull it off. So, separate from how scary is it to write, how does it feel writing not this standard unit of 20 pages, but 8?
I mean, it's not so bad, because I think the main thing I was thinking about was like, okay, I've got 8 pages. You only have this much space to tell a story. It's got to be like basically one thing happens, right? Like maybe 2. Maybe there's like a twist somewhere. And then it was just, all right, I've got 2 pages to set it up, 2 pages to end it, and then there's 4 in the middle. And that was really how I did do it. Like literally, I would write the first 2, and then the last 2 and be like, now I can bridge this thing. And I have like that much space to bridge it. It was fully like a math equation. Not a terribly difficult math problem, but it's better than writing 4 pages of intro and being like, oh no.
I will take a moment to remind the audience that we have 2 clipboards where if you have a question, an audience question. The audience questions are getting filtered through the clipboards. There's one here, and there's one, I think, back there. Can you raise your hand? Thank you. Feel free to raise your hand if you want a clipboard, and someone will pass it to you. Don't be shy. And then when we get there, Jesse's going to filter the questions. Okay, so color. You not just drew but colored this book, and you not just drew but colored this book, and color is really important in comics, and for many decades was mostly a default, because the palette was so limited, the paper was so cheap, the printing was so poor, and and the makings of fast. But with A, the advent of Photoshop, and maybe B, more glossy paper, and C, artistry, more artistry, color is a much bigger part of comics now. And I really love your sense of color, not just on the cover, the thing I'm pointing to, but all 208 pages. So can you talk about coloring, what color means to you, what it does for you, and how you approach it?
Yeah, so one of the things I started doing with Dracula, especially because like no, it wasn't a pandemic book. We finished it in March, so it was right before the pandemic.
This
book
came out while we were closed for
Yes.
renovations.
So never mind. But I was trying, I think because it was a graphic novel and it wasn't a very long one, I did something different where I roughed out all the pages in digitally and did color at the same time. So a lot of times, like, you're drawing a page and you're thinking, and you can see it and you can feel what the colors are going to be, and then when you come in the end and you're tired and just trying to finish it, you're like, I don't know. I don't remember what this is supposed to be. Just make it the regular colors. Who cares? And so doing it at the beginning made sense because like it's part of it, right? Like it's part of the storytelling. And are all these wrapped? All right.
Yeah, we can,
All right. You do that while I keep talking. And like with this book especially, a lot of it's based in like psychedelic and Italian giallo movies, which are, you know, both very, or sort of known for being very colorful. And so as I was doing the roughs, they were all in color. Like these are really close to how like my pencils, quote unquote, looked. Because I just wanted to make sure that was all there. And so I wound up doing the same for this book. And I think now it's sort of, because this book has a lot more pages where things look normal, I could kind of start the chapter and those were sort of in full color, and then as the chapter continued, it was like, okay, well I know what colors these are because we're in this scene, we're in like, it's nighttime in the desert and things are gonna look like this. But yeah, I think making it a consideration from the very beginning, I think changed a lot. Because it's like so much mood, so much of your sense of the scene comes from color. And there were almost.
Yeah.
Where'd it go? It's the next page. And there's stuff like this page here where I wouldn't have remembered it if it was later, but I wanted this color red to drip down the page. And it's not like anywhere in the line art, but it was like I could have that red coming down because I remembered it at the beginning and I was just like, all right, I'm in Procreate, I'll just put the red now and I'll know it's there for later. And that was kind of a game changer.
Mm.
Yeah.
Procreate is a good segue. So your first comics that were published professionally, you were drawing with pencil and ink on Bristol, right?
Yep.
And this was all drawn digitally?
Yep, and Dracula.
And Dracula. So, and then, I mean, Squirrel Girl, it was sort of a mix, right?
Yeah, Squirrel Girl was mostly on paper, I would say.
Okay.
And it kind of went back and forth as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
So, what are some advantages if you're drawing a book digitally? You don't have original art that you can sell. You don't have this artifact. You don't have a giant stack taking up space in your closet. So, do you miss paper and ink? What are the advantages of digital?
I mean, I would say the main thing is that like I've just never gotten comfortable with ink, and I can if I'm sitting there for a long time. But if I have to churn stuff out, which is what you're kind of doing, it's just so much easier with digital ink because I put my hand down at this amount of pressure, it's gonna come out like this. And I don't have to worry about it exploding. I don't have to worry about like, oh, now there's not enough ink. And, oh, now that I put ink in there, it's just a giant blob. Like I really enjoy working with physical things. I do a lot of sewing. I like making things, but that stuff is, I can take my time. It's fun. But with this, like, I just don't have time to sit there and like hope the ink comes out right and then try to fix it when it doesn't. I really, it's just a practical matter, really.
We spoke a year ago, and you had this very specific deadline to finish your new book, Danger and Other Unknown Risks. Do you remember what you said to me? Can you tell? Erica said, I have to finish this, this was 1 year ago, to finish this in 4 days, because my publisher has a very specific window of time booked.
Oh yeah, that was part of the pandemic nightmare with printing, where they had to, I think, like 2-3 years in advance pick a print date, because everything was so backed up that they were like, okay, we're just reserving a day at the printers when they will receive and begin printing this book. Because once everything got started again, they really weren't sure how long the backups were going to continue. If you guys remember, there was like 1 week where like 50 books came out, because that was like after things got started again, and everyone publishing was like, oh, we need to sort this out. This is not good.
And this was not related, your specific date was not related to paper shortages?
No, it was literally just like, everyone is trying to get their books printed, and we have reserved this day. You've got to get in there ahead of time.
And you finishing this book was a little stressful because of coming down to that date, as I remember when we spoke.
I also then found out that wasn't the actual date. They were like, oh, we need time to like do some more editing. I was like, whoa, why did I go so crazy? Why did I like kill myself to hit this date when it's like I've got another 4 months?
I'm saving one question for after the audience questions, but Jesse, should I funnel the clipboards
Sure.
back to you?
Could you hear that?
The video for this thing.
Okay, what was your inspiration for Danger and Other Unknown Risks?
Okay, this is a long meandering story, because it's a lot of Ryan and I going back and forth trying to figure out what this book is. Because like I said, we started with 0. I already had a contract with Penguin, and then they gave Ryan a contract so we could do this book together, which is sort of never how books happen. You usually have to go to the publisher and say, I would like to do this, and then they say yes or no. It's not just, here, do a book. So we just sort of talked for a long time. One of the things that we talked about a lot, partly because we were complaining about movies, was how a lot of these franchises right now focus on legacy, and everything's birthright, and all of our heroes have like a sacred bloodline, and like that sucks. It sucks so bad that like you've got to wait for the right person to be born to fix stuff. That you have to like, wait for someone to say like, oh, the divine right of kings has mandated that this person over here is our hero, and they're going to change everything. So that definitely made its way into it. When we were just sort of throwing out story ideas, every time we started getting into something, Ryan would say, and there's a talking dog. And then that would like change it and it'd be like, okay, this now no longer works. And so eventually I was like, Ryan, we're starting with the talking dog. Like that became like the little nucleus of everything. So it's like, okay, what sort of world would have a talking dog? Like what, we didn't want to do like a We 3 sort of thing where it was like a dog that was like sci-fi'd into talking. So there was like, okay, now it's fantasy. And yeah, a lot of it was just, there was so many calls back and forth, and like so many things made it into this, just from like basically just two buddies talking on the phone. Sometimes it'd be about work, and then like oftentimes we would just diverge, and then those divergences would work its way back into the book. Like I know that the podcast Apocryphals formed part of this book because they had done an episode on Revelations, and there was a piece about how the word apocalypse means change. And so it's like, okay, so we have this post-apocalyptic story, but it's like post-apocalyptic in the sense that things have been rebuilt, and then throughout history, you know, civilizations have fallen, disasters have happened, we're still here. And so it's like, okay, now that's a theme. So there's so much was just like the two of us riffing, and just, there was no one real thing besides the talking dog.
Talking dog is a pretty good one. I feel like this kind of spins out of that question. In the U.S., things feel very codified. Characters are super established. Are there things that you'd like to see, but that are impossible to sell or market?
I mean, I guess like part of that is kind of what we just talked about, where we have this character who, well, we're playing around with like these ideas of change coming from anyone and anywhere. Like I'm just sort of really tired of like singular heroes, and I want to be able to see stuff where it's like, hey, people work together. Like, I don't know, let's say a movie like Outbreak, where it's like, oh, Dustin Hoffman by himself cured the pandemic. That's like cool, great. And like, that's just not how science happens. Like, it's not how things work. And it would be cool, like you can focus on a person, but to sort of recognize that people work together, I think would be cool. Like that's a thing that I would like to see more of. And I think because stories tend to focus on a person, and these other stories tend to be like, okay, so that person did the thing. It's like, well, I mean, kinda. They could do like some of it and still be like the focus of this piece. Yeah, I think that's my answer.
Jesse, you want to pick 3 more good ones?
Good. I love that you draw women of realistic proportions. Have you been asked not to do that, and how did you respond if you were?
I feel like the closest I've come to that, being asked not to do that, was I found out after turning in a bunch of sketches for a Red Sonja cover that like legally the licensor says that she cannot be very muscular. And so it's like, all right, you're literally not allowed to draw Red Sonja as like a big muscular warrior. Which at that point it's like, okay, well legally you're not allowed to. So like, there's not a lot I can argue against there.
How do you come up with an art style for a given comic?
I think it's just what feels right. Like sometimes it'll take a long time. Like the one I just finished up, Parasocial, which was like a sort of spiritual successor to Dracula. It's so much about two people sitting in a room together having feelings that I wanted to really kind of lean into a bit of the cartooniness, but that style also didn't feel correct. And like when I think about these characters, that style was never what came out. So there was like just a long, agonizing process of like figuring out where the middle ground is, like how much you can stretch a human face that still looked more human than cartoon. But yeah, most of the time, it comes pretty naturally. Like Assassination, I think really, it's an R-rated one that leans more cartoony, but that's because like it's sort of like what if John Wick were stupid? So I think you can make it work. Whereas, you know, like with Dracula, we're leaning into these themes of like what it is to be a monster and like control and living in LA in the 70s, which is also bad. So I wanted to, it felt right to have a more realistic style. Yeah, usually I don't think about it too much. Usually it's just like, oh, this is what I see in my head. Now it's on the paper. And just the one project that no one here can see yet because it's not out till October. It was like that was a nightmare. So much just like agonizing.
So I think most of the other questions have been sort of covered in this talk. So I'm just going to ask if you can quickly tell us what you have coming next that we can look forward to.
Well, I have Parasocial with Alex DeCampi, which
Is it about this size?
it is twice as thick, but it's that shape. It's going to be like the same kind of binding and everything, but it is 2 times as many pages. That's like a 56-page story?
Sure.
Yeah, it's 50 something, and the other one's like in the low 100. So, and you know, that was in what we talked about before about like going back and forth. It was nice like going from Danger into Parasocial, because like Danger is like, hey, we're going everywhere, we're gonna have adventures, and like we're gonna have, you know, there are feelings, but they're more like teen feelings about things both good and bad. I try not to give anything away because you guys all have the book now, so you want to read it. And with Parasocial, it's like it's closer to Misery. And so you have, you know, it's like 2 people stuck in one place having those kinds of intense feelings. And it was nice, like, bouncing onto that. And I've got these, well, 1, maybe 2 of these Harley Quinn backups, which they've been fun, because it's like, they're all dream sequences, so you get to be as ridiculous as you want. It's like the first one that's already out, came out this week, is a like Sailor Moon Sentai thing, and the next one is all based on like found footage horror movies. So they're all over the place.
My final question for Erica is, the talking dog has a purple tongue.
Uh-huh.
Why?
Because it's a chow-chow, and they have purple tongues.
Ladies and gentlemen, Erica Henderson.
I did pick the chow-chow partly because it's like this ancient species, and it was another one of these like conversations I was having that then worked its way into the book. So you spent a long time being like, is it going to be a little dog? Is it going to be a big dog? Like, the size of the dog will determine what the dog can and will do, right? And we decided on a larger dog, and then my friend Leah, who like majored in archaeology and like knows archaeologists, talked about a friend of hers who spent like some time in Mongolia. And I guess like there are smaller villages there where like chow-chows are kind of half feral, and they just live with the people but will chase off predators. And so I just like had this idea of these like big fluffy dogs that are semi-autonomous and are very cute, but like they're not actually the nicest species, or not species, breed. And I found that to be really interesting. It's the visual of these like big cute dogs that are also guard dogs, because like we think of guard dogs as like, you know, the bully breeds. You know, they look mean, and these guys are so cute. They're so fluffy. But they're guard dogs and they will bite you.